Alarming signs you're in an abusive relationship. Hi friends, welcome to Marriage Realities, a comprehensive relationship channel. Today's video is all about the alarming signs that your relationship might be abusive. Most of you think that physical violence is the only abuse you face in your married life. It is not so. There is more to abuse than just the physical brutality. Unknowing to you, you're time and again abused by your spouse. When your spouse yells at you for no valid reason, it is abuse. When you're terrified to talk about your views to your spouse, your fear means you're unknowingly being abused. When your spouse throws things around in a show of temperamental tantrum, it just means your relationship is abusive. It plainly shows that your spouse treats you like a dustbin to throw all his or her anger on you. When your spouse controls your money, you're being financially abused. When you're compelled to ask the permission of your spouse to fulfill even your basic needs, you're undergoing controlling abuse. When your individuality is crushed by your spouse in his or her selfish quest to dominate you, your married life is abusive. This is not all. There are a lot more ways your emotions are crushed and trampled in an abusive relationship. When you're forced to censor your words and talk hesitatingly to your spouse in the fear of a verbal backlash, which is insulting and offensive to your self-respect. Does your spouse leech you off your hard-earned money? Are you deprived of personal money for your individual wishes? It plainly shows that you're being abused financially. Are you unable to help your parents as your spouse refuses to acknowledge your duty towards them? This is absolute emotional abuse. Does your spouse have unreasonable mood swings and makes your life torturous in being illogical and bad-tempered? You're being abused as an outlet by your spouse to vent his or her frustrations on you. Is your spouse too possessive and does not allow you to interact with others? Your independence is being abused. Does your spouse shift the blame on you to make him or her look innocent and guiltless? You're experiencing selfish abuse to the core. Does your spouse ignore you when you're undergoing tremendous pressures in your workplace or in your life? This is unsupportive abuse. Does your spouse dip into your joint account and swindle you of your money? This is abusive monetary cheating. How can you find happiness in your marriage if your spouse is uncaring, passes snide remarks, and does not support you in your times of need? Why is your spouse abusive? Your spouse might not be confident. The childhood of your spouse might have been abusive, and so he or she grows up without knowing the value of decency. The persistent failures of your spouse makes him or her develop inferiority complex. Your spouse might have a very low opinion of himself or herself. Can you see how various factors contribute towards the abusiveness you face in your marriage? When your spouse is not confident, he or she displays all sorts of complex behavior. If you're more successful than your spouse, he or she feels completely inferior to you. To hide his or her lesser feelings, he or she tortures you by being annoying and irritating. The other day, I was shopping in a mall. I saw a beautiful girl, well dressed and looking absolutely ravishing. I paused to admire her, and I was not the only one looking. She had many eyes on her, but her husband was a total disappointment. He was very short and very obese. What a mismatch, I thought. I could see that her husband was highly strung up to see his wife being the cynosure of many eyes. The man rudely yelled at his wife to follow him, and the poor girl literally cringed in shame. The husband's inferiority complex made him jealous and made him behave indecently towards his wife in full public view. This was a blunt case of a husband being abusive towards his wife in the full view of the public. Can you see how various factors contribute towards the abusiveness you face in your marriage? Now let us see why a husband is abusive towards his wife. Are you a successful woman? Does your husband face persistent failures in his profession? Your husband feels his ego shattered and battered by your success. Your highly successful career makes your husband feel that he is no match to you. Your husband feels his ego crushed and battered by your success. So he reacts violently towards you. Are you very beautiful? Is your husband very mediocre in his looks? Do your friends or colleagues comment that your husband's no match to your looks? This instigates a feeling of inferiority complex in your husband. When your male colleagues, friends, relatives interact with you with friendliness, he becomes suspicious. So, your husband abuses you verbally and physically whenever he sees you well dressed. When your husband is an alcoholic, he abuses you physically and verbally. When you do not give him money for his drinks, he behaves inhumanly to make you part with your money. When your husband indulges in extramarital affair, he loses interest in you and withdraws into a shell of indifference and apathy. Your husband does not interact with you and behaves like a stranger towards you. Your husband avoids physical contact with you, and his silence is also a worse form of abuse. Can you see the various ways a wife is abused by her husband? Now, let us look at the abusive behavior of a wife. Your wife can be abusive too. When your wife is abusive, she controls and dominates you. You have no other go than become a henpecked husband. You literally shiver with fear in the presence of your wife. You become tongue-tied to a lashing tongue. When your wife is over-possessive, she literally clings to you and demands all your time. When your wife is consistently suspicious about you, she verifies your whereabouts by asking highly probing and doubting questions. Your wife calls you during your working hours and demands to know what you are doing. When your wife is selfish, she becomes wildly angry if you help your parents or relatives. She utters words that degrade your family. When your wife wants things done her way, she denies you sex to bring you into submission to meet her wishes. Can you see how a wife too abuses her husband in many ways? Persistent abuse kills your marriage. You will not enjoy your married life if you live through an abusive relationship. Mostly, abusive behavior stems from a selfish attitude. When you look at everything from your angle, whatever your spouse does makes you wild with anger. When you're too focused on your own comfort level, you do not adjust with your spouse. Instead, you want everything done your way. You want your wishes to be a command your spouse should obey. You can never take no for an answer. It is indeed sad that marriage has become a war zone for most couples, with each trying to outwit the other. You do not understand that you're actually demeaning yourself when you insult and abuse your spouse. Your spouse is your better half and not your bitter half. Your married life becomes beautiful and meaningful only when there is mutual respect and care between you. Your relationship can never be a one-way path of giving and being in the receiving end. You cannot always be the person to make adjustments to tolerate the abusive behavior of your spouse. Both should reflect the love you have for each other like in a mirror. When you love and smile at each other, your relationship smiles back at you. But when you snarl and yell at each other, you reflect the abuse and insult in your married life. Did this video make you understand about the qualities which signals that you're living in an abusive relationship? Marriage Realities will have many such relationship eye-openers. Subscribe to my channel to understand your marriage in a new light. Press the bell icon for updates about my latest relationship videos. Make love forever until death do us part, your relationship goal.